Okay, so I'd like to welcome you to the Ladies Gaelic Football webinar on referees communicating with players. So this is one of our final topics in referee education. I think it's a really important one, and one that I would talk about a lot when we're talking about referee education is communication and the art of communication. And I believe the better referee you are, a lot of the times comes down to your communication style and how we do that. So we're delighted to have you all with us this evening, and I'm even more delighted to have Barry Redmond with me. Barry's one of our national referees. Barry's refereed some really big games, and you know, when I was looking at communication, I was watching back one of his games and I was looking at his own communication style, and me and Barry have spoke about communicating on a couple of occasions, and I just thought he'd be a great man to have on board and offer his opinion in and around it. So Barry, delighted that you give up your time to join us, and if you want to just say a few words, a bit of background on yourself.
Thanks, Claire, and thanks for having me on here tonight, and hello everyone. Just background, I'm no better, no worse than any is. I'm a referee. I do it because I enjoy it, and I'm here tonight with Claire to hopefully give you a couple of pointers if you can take any bit of feedback positively or put a question in the Q&A or chat. We're here to help you, and I will not know all the answers, no one does, but sometimes we're on a forum like a webinar like this, maybe a little question or a little nugget can pop up and we can help each other, and that's what I'm here to do. And again, I hope you enjoy the evening and ask the questions.
Yeah, definitely, Barry, and that probably leads us into what we're going to try and touch on tonight. We're really going to look at what is communication, so we understand what we mean by it. The different styles of communication. I'll hopefully not go too advanced into that. Something that I always feel is important is talking about effective communication, and then the big one, how does the referee communicate with the players, and what scenario does that differ or change? So that's what we're hoping to go through. The first thing I'm going to ask you is in the chat, so I want to make sure we're all using the chat function and we know how to do it, is what do you think is the most important type of communication for a referee? So just type in there A, B, C, or D. Do you believe it's verbal communication, non-verbal, written, or others? So what do you think is the most important type of communication for a referee? So any of you referees out there, what do you believe? With the verbal coming in strong at the minute anyway, Barry?
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Bit of non-verbal. Yeah, A for me, more important for players to be on board than the crowd, definitely. A lot of A's, Barry, so I threw this in because I always think it's a bit of a trick question. I believe all methods are needed big time. Like you think of the verbal and we talk about tell and the importance of that, you think of the non-verbal, and I jump to body language, signaling, all of that. And then I go to written, like you have to fill in a report, you have to keep a steady scorecard. And then there's obviously our other types, so they all resonate, I believe, for a referee. And Barry, you personally, what would you sort of tend to jump to when you see that?
Well, yeah, in fairness to everybody's answers, everyone will have a different perception of what is actually going on. But I suppose during game time, as a referee, we probably think it's verbal, and we'll probably try to extenuate that the whole time. However, some people will be looking at you, they'll be reading you from the very minute you get out of the car, even before you blow your first whistle. So you will believe your whistle was how you started everything. It may not have been. It may have been how you carried yourself onto the field. It may have been your dress. It may have been the tone of your whistle. It may have been how you welcome the players. That doesn't have to be verbal. Yes, it's so strong. But believe me, we as human beings, and as nature tells, we are looking at all the signs, whether we're taking it in or we're not. We're looking at the whole package.
And you often hear, Barry, first impressions last. So as a referee, I think how you turn up and conduct yourself has a lasting impression.
Absolutely, absolutely. We don't even know it half the time, but there's always somebody looking, always. Yeah.
So that'll lead me to this. For you personally, just to give us another wee think about it, when refereeing, what type of communication do you use the most? Is it your signals? Think of yourself. Is it talking? Is it your facial expressions, or is it listening? And people might think maybe listening is a bit of an odd one to have in there, but you know, just let us know what you think. Yeah, Barry, somebody just picked up on your last point, which I think is excellent. And the way you blow your whistle is different in different scenarios is important. I think we'll talk about that when we talk about the use of the whistle later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of signals coming in here for A, a wee bit of B. So a lot of people are saying mostly they use their signaling. Again, hard to choose. A and B, A, all of them. Good man, Pat. So Barry, what about you? There's a real mix there. What type of communication do you think you use the most?
The most? I'm not even sure if I'm the proper person to even answer that for you.
Yeah.
Because everyone at a game time knows all the answers, and we probably know the least answers according to many people. However, again, it's the package. I do believe initially it will be your expressions, your body language. It will be how you talk to the captains or the management. You will absolutely have to make it be seen or heard that you're listening. If you're not listening, all the other actions will go out the window, I believe. And then during game time, your signals carry your authority, your whistle will carry it, your body language will. We do have an obligation to the management, to the lines, to the spectators who pay, to signal correctly for why we are actually blowing the whistle. And in turn, we will gain respect of the players and hopefully the respect of people. They may not agree with what we've done, but they will know why we're blowing that whistle. So again, it's a package.
Definitely, Brian, you explained that brilliantly. And I think maybe the other thing is you might tend to use different type of communication for different situations, depending whether somebody's, coming at you with conflict or aggression, or somebody's quiet and timid, or you might change whether you're telling or you're showing, depending on what's facing you. I think that's a big thing as a referee as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And just to sort of define it up, because we said we would talk about what the actual communication is. It's going to bring it in. It's actually the simple act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. Every communication involves at least one sender, a message, and a receipt. So that's what people don't realize, and that's what Barry brought in about the listening. Every time you communicate, are you the sender? What's the message and who received it? Did they receive what you wanted them? Did they receive? And that's the power of communication. They have to receive the simple message, the one that you want. When communication occurs, it typically happens in one of three ways. So these are the big ones. The verbal is our talking, our non-verbal, our body language, our expressions, and our visual, our signaling, what they see. So it's important to keep them all in mind throughout it. They're the main acts that we'll listen to or look for. Communicators constantly exchange information, meaning people always seem to be either receiving or giving information. So it's a tool. There's a lot going on in and around it. So you have to practice communicating. You have to practice your message. And hopefully we'll jump into a bit of that later. But again, just to get you thinking, if I was to ask you, pick one word, pick two words, pick three words, or the first word that jumps to your head, what words do you associate with communication? So just put it in the chat box for us there. If I'm asking you about communication, what words do you associate with it? Okay, open. Yeah. Open-minded, open communication. Talking, understanding, even if it's not agreement. Tone of voice, polite, curious. Information, smile. Explanation, two-way. Communication's definitely two-way. It's another good one, definitely. Barry, what's the first word that jumps to your mind regarding communication?
Well, it's the word, it's ironic for me. It's called smile.
Yeah.
And I tell people to smile because I'm telling myself every moment I'm on that field, I may not have the happiest of faces because I'm concentrating. And I've been told by my own person to smile a little bit more. But believe me, it does bring me into a better place, and it brings the players around me into a better place because I'm relaxed.
So here's just a load of words thrown in and around communication. You've had a load of them, but some of them jump out to me more than others. Like for me, some of it is people, you know, there are people's in there. When we talk about communication, we're talking about communicating with people, real people. So they're going to want to listen and react differently. Effective communication, that you're getting what the point that you have across the way you want it. Otherwise, there's no point in the communication happening. It has to be effective communication. Barriers, there's always barriers to communication, and that could even be environmental barriers. Like how often have you been out in the pitch, Barry? Even this year, we've started the National League. One of our rounds, we had hailstones coming down on the pitch. We had winds gusting across. How does that affect your communication as a referee with the players? You know,
Yeah.
they can't hear exactly what's saying. It's running across in the wind, might be carrying it a different direction. You might be turning, they might be turning their back to shelter, and it all comes through. So there is always barriers of the communication as well. So it's just really important that you use examples as well, and you convey the message properly. They're all really, you can see them, you'll look at this wee word thing and you'll pick out 3 or 4 that just jump to you straight away in and around communication, and that's important. But one of the things when I was looking towards this webinar, before we go into some of the real practical examples, is I just thought it was important that you understand there is loads of research and work out there involved in communication. I just thought this was more simpler and relevant, that there's 4 communication styles. And there's a doctor that studied this, Dr. Tony, and he developed key styles and things all around communication. And he really nailed them down into 4 ways, and that's the analyzer, the director, the relator, and the socializer. And it said every personality usually has a fraction of all of them in them, so we use them all. It's not saying, look, you're gonna be just one and that's it. What it's saying, it is every person has all of them in them, a bit of the director, a bit of the socializer, a bit of the analyzer, but one usually dominates. And that's the style that you prefer, and it's how you like to be communicated with. And it's not always easy, because you have to realize when you go out there at the referee, you've 30 girls plus subs to communicate with that all have a preferred communication style. Never mind the management teams involved and the selectors. So it's just having a bit of knowledge about the different styles that we have in and around it. And that's what I'm going to run through. You can do this quiz yourself, and I did it in preparation for it. And I thought to myself, I was one style and had myself convinced. And then the next minute it came up, you're an analyzer. And I was like, all right, I wouldn't have picked myself with that. So I would recommend look at a couple of these things and have a look and see where it goes. But what they're really saying is a director style. The communication style is driven by 2 things: the need to get things done and the need to control. So that's where I thought I sat. And the quiz told me somewhere different. But as I said, it opened up my eyes to show, yeah, there is parts of all of you in there, you know, every single task. They're most comfortable in settings where they manage others and take control of situation, fast-paced and goal-oriented. Directors are focused on bottom-line results and achieving success. This go-getter mentality makes them intimate leaders, but it also means they can come across as sometimes impatient and insensitive. So that was my own projection of myself anyway. But what I liked is how to communicate with directors. Be clear, brief, fast, and precise. Be well prepared and provide a solution to their problems. So you're problem solving as you go along. Skip the small talk and get down to the business. Highlight key points and avoid going into too much detail. Find out their goals and provide options with clear costs and benefits. So I'm not going to read through them all, but that was basic. The director, be clear with them, be concise, and skip the small talk. The socializer, however, most people love socializing. They're fun to be around. So Barry's saying about the smile, always make others laugh, and they thrive in being in the center of attention. So we're all picking somebody that we know that's who they are. They're charismatic and energetic, and they always want to be where the action is. That is the socializing, you can see it. However, why do they like communicating and how? Take time to build a relationship with the socializer. They want you to build a relationship with them. They want to have that, maybe some people would say, fluff. Create a fun, lively atmosphere and new and device elements. Help them make a list of priorities, but try to skip the unimportant details and foreign material. They want everything nice and fun and sharp. After a meeting, be clear about who's going to do what and when, and put things in writing. They need a bit of structure, a bit of writing in with them. but be clear. Look at it straight away. What is a director like? Clear. What is a socializer like? Clear. So let's see if that common thing continues. The analyzer, the communication still is very analytic and geared towards problem solving. They love detail. Thinkers are usually slow decision makers who are deliberate about the choices they make. So they think everything through, they make a decision. Is that the right option? Okay, it is. I'm going to go with it. Before taking a specific route, they do their homework by weighing pros and cons and looking at the problem from every angle. So why do they like avoid too much small talk and socializing? Go slow and give them time and space to think things through. Be well prepared to answer their questions thoroughly with precise data. They want to know the knowledge backs it up. Put everything down in writing and make good on your promises. Don't like anybody promising one thing and not doing it. And the relator. On the 4 communication style, this one is the most people orientated. Relators are warm, nurturing individuals who value interpersonal relationships above all other things. They're very loyal employees, devoted friends, and excellent teammates. They're peacemakers by nature, and they often avoid conflict and confrontation. So if you're that referee that doesn't want to get involved in that conflict, that is obviously why your type of communication styles go towards this. You can relate to the situations. How do they like to be communicated? Be patient and slow, show sincere interest in them as a person, build a relationship and learn more about their personal lives before getting down to business. Reduce their fears by clearly explaining how a certain change will benefit and those around them. Be predictable and follow through with your stated promises. Be warm and inviting, focus on the feelings. Barry, where would you see yourself?
I'm not answering that. Not at all. Listen, every piece of that, I remember reading that a couple of years ago, and it's so apt to us all. Bringing it into the game, we don't even know who we are half the time, and then when we read this, we go, wow, that's me. Oh no, actually, that's me over there. Jesus, no, I am that person.
Yep.
We are every part of it, but I do think every game, every situation, you're listening, your body language, what's going on around you, you'll pull from every single one of them pieces and you won't even know you're doing it. A mentor, a peer, a match, a fellow referee, you look at their style, you'll take a little bit from them and they might pull a bit from you. It's everything is different, and we all have different times that we relate to all them positions.
And Barry, I might say in and around that, you probably do it, and you're probably thinking, why is she bringing this in? How is this related to players and referees? It's so relatable because you have to realize when you're communicating with players, they're different. Some of them will like that straight talking, and you'll have seen it on the pitch. You'll think of memory of a player coming to you and you stand straight to them. That was a foul, elbow in the, and they'll take it on the chin and they'll walk away. No more questions. They'll accept that because that's how they like you to communicate. Yeah. And you might say the exact same, be in the same situation a week later or a day later, and say a very similar incident happens. You say the exact same things, and the player reacts completely different. But why, ref? I didn't. Yeah. You know, and I suppose if you're going to give something away, and this is just my perception, I don't know if it's true or not, so that's what I'm going to ask you. Yeah. Is that from experience and learned behavior that you know, oh God, I need to say a bit more than this, or I need to give a hand gesture, or what's going to like resolve this issue or help me explain it a bit better? Yeah, first of all, Claire, we've all walked into that situation. As a player, when I did play, we've been at that situation with the referee, because as a player, we thought we knew everything, of course. And as a referee, we know the rules. We implement that rule for that certain tackle. We blow that whistle. And we are convinced we are doing the correct thing. Yeah. However, as you just said, Lady A will accept, move on. Lady B will not accept, does not understand. However, maybe it was my fault. As a referee, I didn't come across the way I should have, or read the signals of what happened. Or did I actually see it completely to what I thought was what I saw, but I didn't slow down to actually think, hold on here, this is what actually happened. Or did I need to communicate with the line or an umpire? Because sometimes we're too quick to react, yeah, and not read what's going on. Yeah, that's brilliant. Reading the situation and reading how we get on. And I suppose that when we talk about that, and it's effective communication, there's no point in communicating unless it's effective, that the message is joint, that like that wee image says it all. Two things are happening in everybody's brain, but the message has to meet in the middle, and both have to understand what message was trying to be delivered and how was it received. So it's definitely a two-way process. And it's remembering the communication is that sending and receiving information is a very important aspect of all competitive sport. None more so than LGFA, and effective use of this process will make things much easier for you as a referee. Ensure you're just not the sender. And Barry mentioned that earlier about listening. Make sure you're just not telling. Make sure that's not the line you're going down, that you have developed the skill, I think, to listen and clarify as you go along. And the smile just jumps up again. Barry already mentioned it. Look at it, it's there. This is, you know, a lot of these points are research-based. Smile. Every time you turn up to officiate, regardless of whether it's a kid game or a professional match with thousands of people watching, always arrive with a smile on your face. And it's something that always sticks to me, Barry. You've went smile, you've mentioned it, you've went through it. And another referee, and he's on the call here tonight, Shane, has said on a number of occasions when I've talked to him is, and it always stays the same, every time I go to the game, he says, I treat the game the same. So that's the same point. Barry saying he always smiles. Shane saying, I treat it the same, regardless whether it's a go game or whether it's an adult game. I want it. My communication will change. And I suppose that'll be, it really will. You're like, Barry, you're going to communicate different at a go games match than you are at a club game, and slightly more at an inter-county game. True or false?
Yeah, it's natural. But there has to be an empathy in whatever circle you're in. You have to relate. If you're not relating with what's going on, you're in your own time zone, your own time warp. If you're in that warp, you'll get confrontation. Life will be tough, and you'll invite trouble onto yourself. You mightn't have even known it, but by God, you will invite it. It's like opening the door to Hell's Kitchen. It's going to come and hit you.
Yeah, and Barry's been really open, guys, and he's happy for me to share these clips, and these are of Barry and his communication style. And I'm going to show you the first one here now, and hopefully you hear it with good enough quality.
Tackle is good. Well done. Hold. Advantage. None. Be careful, please. Number 5. 5 after. Number 4. Thank you very much. Number 4, hold.
So Barry, I'm going to just throw that open to you. Talk us through your communication there in and around that incident.
Well, first of all, it was a hold. It's as simple as that. But you could see the girl was trying to do the right thing, and I just said, well done. And then all of a sudden you could see the hole going in, and I thought the lady was going in on her left foot, so I gave an advantage. But when she slowed down and I could see 2 players in front of her, there was no advantage. So you're just letting her know what it's for. You're putting your arm up. You're talking the process, as I call it, of being polite, of being straight with them, of getting the arm up, telling them what's going on. Then there wasn't the movement back. So I just said, please. And once you're getting recognition for what you're asking, because you're not telling. If you think you're telling, you've lost. You're asking, thank him.
Yeah.
Because it's not a big issue. I did note her because it was a noting offence. But don't make a fuss about it. Get out of there. And respect is restored. No issue. Happiness. Yep.
I just love the last bit. You know, it was quite clear 5 had said something to you. We can't really pick it up clearly in the mic. And you said to her, yeah, thank you. That's noted. Number 4, whatever it was, the number 4, that's you. Thank you. And she just, it looked like at the start that maybe when you first spoke to her that she sort of took a step forward. And that's what I noticed in the game. And then as soon as you spoke to her, she actually took a step back. And your tone sort of settled her. that you weren't confrontation, you weren't trying to, you were direct, you were clear. You can see a note in there, and then I just loved it then. Thank you. And it was as if she just was like, all right, well, I'm not challenging this. This was the correct call. It was clear, it was precise, and it was explained, but in a manner that was really on point more than anything.
And that's what the player deserved.
And you can see it there. People are coming in straight away, clear communication. Just like smiling, you can say thank you. Enough as a referee, as Barry did in that clip. So that's why there's a couple of clips. So that was the first one I picked out, and that was the reason why I just liked how, and people might notice them wee things, but I do. The first player, she nearly stepped towards Barry as if she was going to say something else back, and his communication just settled it without having to do anything different. And the game then, as you see, flows on and gets going straight away. So it sort of brought us into the next slides that are coming up and around. That is explain when possible. I think we can all agree that Barry did that. It was a great learning opportunity. So he was able to explain. You don't, and it wasn't, and this is what I sometimes think referees, and you could maybe agree with me, Barry, sometimes maybe when you're beginning out as a referee, you get caught up in maybe talking too much. You feel like you have to explain everything, where if you're clear on it and it's simple, it's such effective. So instead of simply saying to them, go away the next time a player questions you, that's away, nope, don't want to hear it, oh, out of my way. It's the speed of the game and the situation allows it. Give a quick explanation along the lines of, yes, you won the ball, number 4, but you led with your elbow after this. So, she said, what was that foul for? Yeah, number 4, yeah, you won the ball, but then you led with the elbow. And then you move on. You don't, over here now, this is what happened. That's not, there isn't time in the game to do that in the first instance. This kind of thing goes a long way with players. And if you say it with confidence and a smile, 99% of players will nod in agreement and just get on with the game. I don't believe you can ever have the problem of talking too much when officiating matches. Don't attempt to strike up a conversation during games about something that's unrelated to the match itself. Talking a lot is much better than not talking enough. So you can talk through the game as long as it's about the game. As long as you're communicating that message, that effective communication, that you're not asking them how to get on, how their training camp went. They are all irrelevant. Short, snappy, and practice. And I believe the more refereeing you do and the more evaluating you do of your communication, the better you become of it. And the big one, being approachable. Being approachable is a great trait for a referee to have. This does not mean you have to act like a counsellor and sit down to discuss every single decision in detail. It does mean that you should allow players to talk to you and approach you, providing they do not do so aggressively, without waving them away like little children. Be accessible and to players as much as possible without disturbing the flow of the game and disrupting it with complete commentary. You're not commentating, you aren't the coach. You're listening and you're clarifying. So Barry, I don't know what your thoughts are around explaining and being approachable as a referee.
Yeah, if you're explaining, you're losing. That's why my style would be short, quick, snappy, move. Negate it with respectfulness straight away. And 9 times out of 10, that will occur. The odd time you might get fire in the eyes, so that means you're looking at the body language, what's going on here. A slow approach to the player. Let them calm and let me gather my thoughts. Yeah. That's because I don't know what's going on in the player's head. They're frustrated, but they may calm down in that split second. So what's the point of me going in, attacking? There's no point. Now I'm upset. The player thinks, oh, well, he might be wrong now. And now we have a barrage and I've let this happen when I could have handled it so differently.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have more clips, hopefully, that will illustrate that. And that brings us on to our further 2 points. The first one, communicating with players on their level. Show that respect, to be on their level and talk to them on that level. You don't need to dictate, or you don't need to be patronizing with them and treat them like little children. Have that level of respect. No player wants to be spoken to like that, and sometimes it can put a rip up their back from the start. Referees are not on the field to be anyone's best friend or win a popularity contest either. However, it's worth remembering that we're not there to be enemies or to make enemies. So talk to players as equals as opposed to lecturing them and building that rapport. Building rapport with players, with captains when they come to speak to you at the start, with coaches. Body language. Barry's already alluded to this a couple of times, and I loved it at the start. Once you get out of the car, and we talked about that, that's when it starts. People are watching you as the referee from you get out of the car, and that's a form of communication, whether you know it or not. How you hold yourself, how you arrived at the game, how your kit looks, how your team looks, they are all forms of your body language. How you're carrying your shoulders, how you're carrying your face, and how confident you're looking, or are you looking sheepish? They all really important aspects. Body language is the silent communicator, so it's the one we don't really think about the most, but the one that we pick up on. It's definitely one I always look out for in terms of my body language when I'm watching a referee. When I'm even watching how a referee makes a decision, I always watch their body language to think, are they confident in that decision? And a lot of the time, without even hearing what they're saying, I'll know if they're confident by their stance. Studies have suggested that we communicate roughly 55% through body language. So can you believe that? That's what the studies have shown. 55% through our body language. Okay. 38% through the tone of our voice. So how we say things is taken up so differently. And 7% through what we actually say. So we're also worried about what we're actually saying, where the most important studies show that the biggest intake is our body language and our tone and how important they are along it. I just think that sort of stuff is mind-blowing. They really get you thinking to the next level in refereeing. Okay, how's my body language? Is that something I need to look at? Have you ever asked somebody, how did you think my body language was there? Not many of us have. So good communication skills, including the effective use of body language, influence players' perception of fairness and correctness. There is no doubt about that. With this in mind, it is vital that you work on your body language and tone as well as what you actually say. So they come hand in hand. Barry, thoughts there?
Yes, it's this, the stats, the percentages, they do not collaborate with what we think. Definitely not. It's only when you see it on a pie chart, bang, you go, oh my God. But that is so factual. Yeah, because we like to think we're controlling everything. We're absolutely not. Other people are actually, they're taking the control from us because they're reading us better than we ever read ourselves.
Definitely. So for another wee communication clip, this is something.
It's quite simple, really. Keep the hands off the bodies. And we'll have the crack, we'll have the fun. If there's any issues with any injuries, if you think there's a problem, ask me, yes? The lads have been told, physios and doctors will come on. We remain playing on this is head. We look after each other and we'll get it going, all right? Best luck, yes, all right, and have fun. Enjoy it, lads. Best luck. Okay, you stay there, I'll go in there, whatever. Thank you very much. Best luck, yes. Thank you.
So a couple of things with that. Barry, you can go first. Talk us through that communication. That's before a game starts.
Yeah, an extremely hot day. Water levels, buckets of water, and the players were under severe pressure because of the heat, humidity. Ground was solid as bell metal. You could see the girls were trying to get on as much water as possible. Communication from water carriers with the two teams. They were wondering about their players and their welfare, and that everything was wound up, and you were trying to just break it all down to say, look, we're playing a game here, we're going to have a bit of crack. Everyone just notch it down a bit because it was a stress level. And I said to myself, no, we're going to calm it all down. And that's why that conversation went on, because the two ladies came over, they felt under pressure because I was blowing the whistle, wanting to start the game, which I did, and I was always going to do so. But everyone was wound up. And believe me, them two ladies that came in, we were actually smiling, having a bit of fun, and they left, and there wasn't a bother, and there wasn't a mention of water. There wasn't a mention of the heat. We all just got on with it. but it had to be carried out that way.
And people are probably thinking, why is she picking these random clips? I just thought it summed up that first part of the webinar. When you see all the text in front of me, there's nothing like a video to show it. We talk about being approachable. Was Barry approachable? 100%. We talk about building rapport. Did he build rapport with the captains? 100%. Tone of voice. How was his tone? Friendly, but authoritative. You know, he wasn't, but to get me, girls, this is what it is. He was clear with what he was trying to lay out. He let them know he was obviously concerned with a heavy pitch with injuries and water intake. If you have an issue, and that's what he said, tell me. Approachable again. Building that relationship before the throw-in even starts. Have a great game, girls. Enjoy it and best of luck. The tone is set for the game. So we talk about all these things beforehand, about building a relationship, tone of voice, body language, open body language, shoulders are back the whole way without even realizing. Eye contact. He made as much eye contact as possible with him. He was nodding his head. So as he's talking to them, really slight, not like a nodding dog, but there was real, yeah, I'm listening. Yeah. And then checked for understanding. Do you get me, girls? And they were like, yeah. Then they asked him for a photo. He could have grunted away and said, oh no, we're in the middle of the pandemic. He said, you jump in there. He took a step behind them, got the photo. Best of luck, girls. Let's get the game going. It just summed up everything we talked about and how we want to try and communicate with the players to create that sense of, it's not a us and it's not Barry versus them. That's not the way it should be. It should be, we're all in this together to try and get the game played in a safe and as and most enjoyable environment as we possibly can. So I just thought it sort of summed up the first part of the webinar that we've been talking about in a good, really good manner. So referee player communication. So effective communication, which we talked about there, there's sort of three elements to it. The skills, so the referee skill set they have to have, the tools that they need in the toolbox, and the player's impression. So we've touched on them all, and we're just going to run through that in a slightly bit more detail. So the referee toolkit, what are you going to put in your toolkit? What's going to be in that belt? The effective referee communication involves referee communication tools. You have to have experienced these and have more than one tool in your box. You can't always keep going to the verbal. There could be a lot of instances where you actually need the non-verbal to step in, and you have to know when to use both. Any good tool of communication will allow the referee to engage the offender attention, project confidence in their decision, and promote a perception of fairness. Examples of research communication tools are avoiding unnecessary words in action, so having these in your locker, avoiding unnecessary words in action, explanation of less than 6 words, if you can get them down short and sweet. Calmness appears more fair than anger, so don't be getting yourself caught in that trap of being outraged. Have that sense of calmness. Barry said he's already walking slow, making that decision. You're clearing your path of communication as you walk that, you know, it's all in there. It's about practice and getting it out there. Having an explanation is perceived as more correct than decisions without explanation. If you blew the whistle, you need to know why, and you'd be able to have to portray that. You have to know why, and you have to practice clear factual messages. You know, you've known why you've blown it, but you got to practice from you saying it, which is one skill, to you blowing it, to you verbalizing it. And it can be really hard to get them all fitted in a tight circle, but it's something you have to have these simple tools in your toolkit. And we've went through the difference between the verbal and the non-verbal, and we're going to need to change that up. Sometimes it's going to need the verbal, and sometimes it's just a non-verbal is going to get the game going far more effective than actually stopping and talking. So the skills, communication with complex preparation of social situation processes and more person-centered communication. So you've got to have, basically what that's saying is person-centered. That's what we said. You're approachable, you're opening up. That's a skill set you have to have as a referee. You have to develop this approachable and being able to keep control of the game. It's effective because it's tailored for the audience. You're tailoring to the group that you have in front of you. You're changing the group that you have in front of you on occasion. If you have a group that is really, really volatile, really, really, questioning every decision, you getting all angry, that is not going to help the situation. That your communication skills, if you're barking and showing back, is actually just going to put more fuel to the fire. You need to inquire some empathy. And Barry, you already mentioned empathy earlier, and we will slightly touch on it, and the ability to sense what the audience is feeling. And I'll take you in with that. Barry, is there ever a game or a situation where you can feel it?
You've got to, you're a human. Rule books, your perception of other people, we're learning on the hoof every day. You will bank information, you will bank situations because you got to, because you're trying to upskill yourself. You'll have conversation with your umpires, your lines people before games, by text, scenario. What happens if this happens? What happens when a little girl is crying, she's upset, and you're an adult with a bloody whistle in your mouth? What good is that? Oh, but you know the rule book. Well, I tell you, you better know how to treat that little lady with respect, and how to comfort that little lady by getting her mentor in, or an FLO in, or a little buddy to come over and say, ask number 7, is she okay there? Because if you don't get that right, you ain't getting nothing right. Your whistle, your rule book means nothing. So as much as you have to be trained into a situation, if you don't have empathy, you've lost everything. And
it's a skill. It's something you have to work on it. For some people it comes very natural to. For some people you do have to work on it and develop it. And you can do that by studying games, and as you said earlier on, by watching other referees. Don't test yourself sometimes on making the right decision, but rather test yourself on explaining the correct decision. And I thought that was a really powerful message. See, no matter what clip I play, I don't know what, it's a referee thing. I could be playing a clip to try and share a message. Like, for instance, the first clip where I showed up Barry, I can tell you now that everybody in this webinar went straight to, what did he call the free for? He's went straight to judging his decision. I can tell you that now, because that's what 9 out of 10 of you will have went straight to judging his decision. Where the emphasis was on how you communicated. So it's a skill to get you to think, stop trying to test yourself on, did he make the right decision, or watching a game and so on. Oh, I wouldn't have done that. Why don't you try to focus on blowing the whistle and saying, it was a push, so how would I explain that? That was a high elbow, that was a charge. What words would I use? So effective, so powerful if you could get yourself thinking in terms of that way. Referees and educators will commonly focus on making the right call, but practice explaining the right call can build a deep bank of memories from which you can pull and gain situations. So they'll come naturally to you because you've practiced them. It's like anything. When you start off doing something, you have to practice. You have to practice how you communicate. You have to practice getting better at it. A theory that makes one a good communicator is that when presented with a situation, one scans their memory for a similar communication and refuses the option and picks the right choice. So that is a skill that takes a long time and a lot of experience and a lot of banking memories.
Well, I believe that last point, believe me, whether it's refereeing or whether it's professional life in work or at home or socializing, that last point, if you can get 70 or 80% of the way on that, tell you one thing, lads, we're great people.
Yeah.
That to me makes the difference. It makes the difference on the field, on your everyday life, because that brings you up the notches. That gives you the edge to move on. That gives you the steps to get where you want to get in this referee. Because if you take the scenarios and learn from the scenarios, bank it and know and be comfortable that that's going to come up, and I'm ready for it, and I want it because I'm ready for it, and that'll make the difference, lads.
It'll stand to by you. And the last one, the player's impression. Players are most likely to positively receive communication if it is considered fair. They want a bit of fairness. Survey of hundreds of players will feel that fairness is determined by the referee being competent, dependable, and respectful, by how you treat them and how you act and how confident you are in making your decision. The perception exists well before the game starts, and this is an important part for every referee's qualities in order to build beneficial impressions with players and coaches. So as we said, from the minute you step out of the car, there's an impression there. Through developing the skills of sensing with empathy, using the tools of planning and recalculating the message through the games, couched with personal characteristics that project competency, dependability, and respect, referees can foster their communication and build it into better games, making life easier for themselves. So it's just something to have in mind. The next thing we're going to talk about in terms of communication is the whistle. And I'm going to let Barry talk about this. You can see this wee thing up here, but Barry, you know, you're reffing all the time. Explain about how a referee communicates with the whistle and the importance of it.
Well, I suppose this is the baby here. It's a Fox 40. I tend to use it around the neck, keep it in the mouth. That's my style. Others have other styles. I've tried it because they're doing it for a reason. And I want to see, could I be better that way? But I revert back to what I'm used to, and I like doing it this way. It's tone. It's not just your voice. The tone of that whistle, the loudness of that whistle. I clean it. It's been commented upon, Jesus, where did you get that whistle? And I said, no, it's actually the same as your whistle. I just tend to blow it a little bit differently. It's my extension of my arm. It's my extension of my smile or my voice. It sets the ground rules from the very minute I come onto that field to let people know I'm there. And in 10 minutes, the game is going to start. I've blown that whistle. It sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. But I believe you have to gain respect. I don't say command respect. I don't like that word, but you got to gain it. And if you're confident in what you're doing, that whistle will get you a long way in our game, lads. Yeah.
I think if you're refereeing at any sort of level, I think you need to be serious about your whistle and, you know, not running into the Euro shop or the pound shop. You have to get something that when you actually blow it with that bit of confidence, somebody can hear it. And you practice blowing your whistle. It's something we introduced in our courses, was to try and get people actually practicing blowing the whistle as new referees, because it's even daunting the first time you blow it and the noise it makes. But one thing I'll say, and we're going to cover this now, is anything about communicating as a referee, something really simple is always please try and remember when you think of communication, whistle, signal, tell, and that'll throw us on to the next. Barry, talk us through signaling.
Yeah, well, you've blown your whistle, but you need to let people know now what has just happened there. Well, this is what's happened. You've overcarried the ball. You may not agree with it. It's what I've seen. And that is why I actually blew that clean collar whistle. That's without that, and as it says, body language, you're confident. You said a moment ago, you're not looking as to, Jesus, what the hell was that for? You're looking to see, well, I believe he is 100% confident in why A, he blew a whistle, and B, his explanation of it, as in a signal, pull of a jersey, a foot trip. It's the confidence of carrying that body language to show not just the player, but the line and everybody. This is why I've blown that whistle. Now we move on.
So it's really important that we use it. It's probably not used as much as we would like, but we definitely have to get in. And again, it's getting into a habit of doing it, Barry, isn't it? Really getting into a habit of signaling and doing it with as much movement as you can. And the last one, if you want to go through that, this is the last of the whistle signal. The last one is tell. And we've covered a good bit of that already.
Yeah, you're going to speak to them. It's how you say it. It's your competency of knowing the rule. The player may not know the logic of why, however you do, because you're applying a rule to what you saw. You tell the person, you signal to the crowd, to the person. Keep it simple, as it says. Move on.
And I just love, so I'm going to sum this up. Let's watch Barry to see if he whistles, signaled, and telled in the next clip. Again, let's listen and try and watch the communication. And here's another wee example for you.
Over! "17, come here, please. Good goal. I'm walking into you. Wayne, we're going to go to the lines person. Will you wait here, number 17, please? How are you, Maggie? Stop the clock.
wasn't an intentional punch into the stomach, but she certainly went in very hard on it.
Who?
When she was number 17, when Claire was coming through.
Okay.
She came in from underneath, and the body, the fist went across her body in a punch in action.
In a punch in action?
Yeah, but whether it was a deliberate strike is, I would say...
Did she connect with the player?
She connected with the player.
Number 17 red?
Number 17 red,
okay,
yeah.
now any query on the goal?
No query on the goal.
Goal is allowed, we're all happy with. I'm
it.
bringing 17 to deliberate with that lady now.
Yeah.
Thanks lads, well done, well done. 17 red, please. Goal stands. Okay, we have a closed hand effect in a fist action. Connect with the body. We do not know whether it's deliberate or not. Because of that, we'll be going with yellow, okay? It's to the body, it's to the body, it's to the body, it's to the body. We got to be very, very careful. Thank you very much.
Barry, talk us through this. Loads in this.
Yeah, there was an advantage. I saw a tackle. The time went up, but they needed a goal, so I wanted to give an advantage. Point wasn't good enough. We allowed the advantage, but I banked an issue in my mind. The ball hit the net. My umpire on the goal flag had her arm out straight away. So I communicated an issue. My umpire communicated an issue. I had no issue with the goal, but I still wanted to confer that with my goal umpire. My point umpire came over to the goal flag. We conversed there. On the way in, I wanted to make sure 17, I kept saying the number 17, reiterating the number. That was for my own sake, not just for her. Plus, I wanted her to stay local, if you know what I mean, and when her wandering. In fairness to my goal flag umpire, she had marked it. She had seen what I thought I had seen, but I wasn't 100%. But she saw it. So we reiterated what happened, and we acknowledged that the goal was good, and we went back to number 17. But she wasn't happy. There was frustration in her eyes, I put it that way. She wasn't ignorant or anything, it was just frustration. I think frustration that we caught her, I think. But however, she tried to talk her way out of it a small bit, so we had to say, no, this wasn't happening. We'd seen it, we're dealing with it, and we're asking you now to leave the field for 10 minutes. And that doesn't always work, guys, but that worked like a dream.
And it's really, I showed Barry these clips before tonight, guys, just to get his approval, because I didn't want to catch him out by throwing something on him. And when we were having our conversation, it was brilliant. He didn't even realize that he did this with his hands. When if you watch during the communication, when he's explaining what happened, she starts getting a bit irate, and he just automatically went, and research and all of that shows us that this is a calming motion. So he didn't start anything back. He didn't even try to speak back to her. He just put the hands down to sort of say, settle, this is where we're going here. And then he used rule, he used rule when he was saying why you're going off. It's a fist. Everybody knows you can't tackle with a fist in ladies football. When it's a fist into the body, it's automatically a yellow. If you believe it was on the player and it's deliberate, it's a red. So one of my favorite aspects, again, is when he's conferring with his umpire. Who's doing all the talking? Think back in that clip. Who's doing all the talking? It isn't Barry. He's listening, and all he does is clarify. His questioning is spot on. He clarifies with her, what did you see? What number was it? Was it 17 red? Was it fist into the body? He was pulling the exact facts. He didn't put any words into the umpire's mouth, exact facts, and he listened the whole time and clarified. Another thing, what did he do the whole time? Watch the pitch. Eyes on the pitch. 17 had been asked. So I just thought it was a great real life example to show you of something that happens in game, but not just about the yellow card, not just about it all. He starts off by playing advantage. Everybody knew he was playing advantage. Why? He called advantage out loud. He called advantage over. throughout that process, he had his hand in the air. Then it moved on that he believes something isn't right. His communication with his umpires came down to open questions, clarifying questions, and hugely listening. And then he got the result that he wanted. Calmness with the player, used rule, and hands down. So I just thought it was a great clip to show, to sort of try and sum up how we should be communicating with so many aspects across it, and especially we're listening, we're clarifying, and we're getting straight to the point. So I just thought you might like to see it. So well done, Barry. It was a really good example. Thanks for letting us share that.
No problem.
What are we moving on to? Being clear, the communication is key. I'm just going to run through the last couple of things here. And if you have any questions, start thinking of them now. But be careful with your word choice and limit the discussion. Knowledge of the rules and respect go hand in hand. Use rules when you're communicating. Be open and honest. Listen and clarify. Understanding the different communication styles and paying attention to it will help reduce frustration and get you out of trouble. The one that we've talked about tonight and is really relevant is listening skills. You know, actively listen. Maintain eye contact. Do not interrupt. Let them finish what they have to say. Good posture. Maintain a non-threatening position. Mentally rehearse situations in which you might be emotional. So practice. Listen, practice, clarify. I think that example of Barry sums up that listening skills, both with his umpire and both with the player. Empathy, something we talked about, and showing empathy by using the simple word but can really help you. And these are some examples. I appreciate that, but, and then you go on to explain your point of view. So you've listened and now you're going to explain. I'm sorry I didn't see that, but I'll watch it in the next play. You know, you can only deal with what you see. I see your point, but, so you're showing empathy all the time. I agree with what you're saying, but, and you're moving on. Explaining what you, from your side, and moving on. That may be well, but, so the power of empathy is so important, and using it in the right circumstances to help with your communication with players. Your opinion is valid, but we always have the killer language. Please try to avoid it. The how dare you? You're wrong. I'm right. I'm big, you're small. Don't speak to me. Do not speak to me. You know, you don't want to get caught in that trap. Stop. Just stop right there. Come over here now. Come over here now. You're the curly fingers out, and over here now. That's the tone. Who do you think you're talking to? It's always one to put it back up. Who do you think you're talking to? So don't get caught in them traps of them that killer language. Sometimes we don't even know we're saying it. It might take a buddy or a mentor or a friend to pick it up. I had it one time with a referee, and I was listening back on his audio, and he called the player by her name on 5 different occasions. And I rang him and I had a chat. We were just chatting about different aspects of the game, and I said, "Are you aware you kept referring to the player by name?" And he said, "I didn't." And he said, "You did?" He said, "No, there's no way. I always say number 11, you know." And I said, "I'm going to fire you over a couple of clips, and then you can give me a call back." And I cut the clips and fired it back across to him. And he rang me 10 minutes later and said, "Oh, wow, Claire, didn't even realize I was doing it. Didn't even realize I was doing it." So it's also a skill of, you know, what are we doing? And maybe sometimes we need a hands up for somebody to look at our body language, look at our talking, look at our clarification. Is it aspects we don't usually come into? And just to finish off, I'll let Barry come in after this. But for me, communicating with players, stay calm. Calmness is it's going to help you. Be prepared with what your message is. Practice communicating. Control what you can control. You're not going to be able to control all situations. So try to stay true to yourself and control what you can control. Communicate well, both visually by using your whistle, signal, tell. If you can get that right, you're going a long way. Watch your language and your tone. It's so important. Ask somebody to listen to your tone and your language and see if you can get any help. And most importantly, if you want some respect, you got to give it. So if you give the respect, I believe you'll get the respect, and that'll help. So Brian, have you a few words Just to wrap it up, and then we'll take any questions from anybody that has any for us.
Well, first of all, I really do. If you look, people, if we're going to get 2 or 3 little items or nuggets out of this, I'll be happy, because you learn from a webinar, but you put into action on the field. So don't leave here without asking the question, and don't go to the game without trying to implement what that question could have been, should have been, or you've got an answer for. Just learn, and I hope you enjoyed it. And look, I've been trying to be, and Claire said to me as well, we're being as honest as we can with you. And if you bring honesty to the game, you're a winner. That's how I look at it. Don't try to be anybody else. Be yourself, be confident, and you'll win. So I hope you enjoyed it, even lads.
Barry, we have one in here which is always a bit different, and sometimes people laugh, but I think this is the power of the webinars and the way we are now. We have somebody in listening to us from America, in the USA tonight, tuned in.
Brilliant.
And they've said, many adult lady players are American-born beginners, so their knowledge of the rule is often minimal. Thus, friendly over-communication of the rules infractions I think I saw, whether or not they agree with me, has served me well. So he's basically saying, and that's what we talked about, you have to read the situation, because it's going to be completely different how you would communicate with that beginner compared to going with the adult. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Many's a game you'll be refereeing, and you'll have a goalkeeper who's standing in for the evening. An issue has happened, and a good person has said, I'm playing goal. And that lady may not be au fait with the rules. And the fullback will maybe try to educate the keeper, and you'll realize straight away, this lady doesn't know the certain little rules around this. Best thing ever, walk in and introduce yourself. Yeah. Hiya, I'm Barry. Is this your first night in the goal? Straight away, it will flow. And just explain 2 or 3 little things. It'll work. And our good friend in the States, I've been lucky enough to go away with the LGFA and referee in Asia. And we've so many nationalities brought together from our simple little football game. They all come together to play a game of football, and they're not au fait with all the rules. And you know what? It doesn't really matter, because they're there for fun. They want to learn. They're part of a group, and you have to make sure that they're enjoying themselves too, and they're enjoying being safe in an environment. And just talk, and it'll happen. It'll work.
Barry, there's another really good one that's actually come in here, and it was something I didn't even think about. Should have added it into the presentation at some point. So thanks very much, Patrick. Thoughts on when we should utilize a captain as an ally during a game for communication?
Yeah, that's some question. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All the negative parts of it come in. We try to utilize the person when it's already, the control is lost, maybe.
Yeah.
However, from the clip earlier on, if you can get the captain on your side with a simple, it's okay if you don't have your paperwork, we're going to get in a second. Yeah, if you have an issue with an injury, just ask me. If I have an issue with one of your players, I'm going to ask you. So you're empowering them the whole time to be part of your tool or utensil to get the game finished with control. Them little things will carry you. But if you make an enemy of a captain or a leader on a field, we all know leaders on a field in different lines. Communicate with them directly, make eye contact with. You bring them with you. You bring the lines, you bring the others, you bring the package with you. Mightn't always work, but that question, you know what? I'm going to have to write that down and think about that even more, because that's a fabulous question.
Yeah, I think we can bring the captain in loads of ways. If it's something that's maybe not as sinister, Barry, it's something that we can see. I think the important thing is using the captain before it boils over. They mightn't very much influence when it's already hit boiling point. But if you see somebody getting antsy, or somebody showing you even a bit of dissent, and you've moved it forward 13 meters, but it's not quite enough for a card, but you can see the person still quite, saying to your captain, you might want to have a word with 13 there, because if she is out of line with me again, she's going to be in the book,
I've learned that from other referees, and I've seen that in action. The little conversation with the captain or the leader of the line, as I call them. There's a one in every line. And that little word of politeness, have a word with number 2 there. She looks to be getting a little bit frustrated. Thank you. Take control, take control, take control.
Yeah, so Barry, we're getting well past our cutoff date. So folks, I want to thank you very much for tuning in here this evening. Hopefully, as we said, even if you picked up one thing, it's been a good day. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. And thanks very much again to Barry for giving up your time this evening. And thanks everybody else for tuning in. Cheers.